an imbalance, so that's why I ended up separating to two.
Dave Meredith, Part 2.
Dave, I know you're a proud father to a young daughter. I'm just wondering, has fatherhood affected your songwriting in any way?
Phil, that's a very good question. My daughter was born just over 3 years ago, so yeah, things changed quite considerably, I would say. I mean, I used to have my own room for all my gear, so now it's shrunk right down. I'm now resigned to the spare bedroom. There's a double bed here, and I'm trapped in this little corner, and that's where my complete setup is as it stands right now. A few things have changed. I used to have a guitar, acoustic and an electric, but I find I haven't played them for a long time. I was never good at those particular instruments, in all honesty, at all, but it used to just cramp up my fingers a lot for some reason, and I struggled. So the acoustics now in our main bedroom, it's more of a decorative piece, I think now. It's sort of becoming an antique, and but yeah, it's changed in a few ways. You know, time is obviously harder to find, much harder to find. And I think that's why my collaborations have dropped off considerably as well, because I don't want to say to somebody, yes, I can have something ready on for the weekend, and the weekend arrives and I've barely started. And I like to be, I try to be, and I like to be honest and on time for things. So if I said to someone, I'm going to be ready for Friday, I want to be ready. So if I can't be, it's not fair, because they're probably waiting, and vice versa. So I don't do it so much. I tend to now think, right, it's soundtracks. So it gives me more flexibility, so I can start something, and if I don't get to it for another 3 months, it's just me. So nobody's waiting, nobody's of any concern. So that certainly helps in that respect, and it's allowed me to go back to the passion I did like, was doing soundtracks. And since the first, like the album we mentioned earlier, Illusions, I've gone on, I think there's another 10 since then. There's quite a few albums. If once I get going, I tend to get onto a project, and it moves quickly. And this has been the case recently. I think it's Quantum Design was my last one, which is probably my highest of the sound quality that I've reached so far in the years of trying to, evolve constantly. Because for me, music never stops. There's no ending to it. You just keep progressing. No matter how good someone is or how poor someone is at the start of their journey, you continue to improve. As months, years go on, you're never an expert, in my opinion. It just keeps improving, and you improve. The more you play, the more you progress, the improvement just comes with it. And then probably the maturity with age, and allowing you to construct things differently or find new ways or new ideas. So yeah, that's great. And like I said, Quantum Design was the last one, and half of that was done during the UK lockdown, because between spending time with my daughter and being at home, I needed to do something creative to keep the mind ticking over. So half of that album was finished in that time, and that was great. It gave me an opportunity. And then I think not too long after, I launched it because it was finished, and that's what happened with that one. And it was, it's another one that I was happy with, and the end result, it was balanced, which was great. And a few days ago, I've started to try some new ideas for tracks, and another 3 or 4 have come forward. So this may or may not be the start of the next one. I'll see how it pans out, but I don't panic so much over it now. I don't rush. It takes if it all comes forward very quickly, brilliant. If it takes 6 months, a year or longer to get 4 or 5 tracks, then that's the way it is. There's other things now, so it does change. It does change things, but in a good way. I don't think it's a negative way. I think it's quite a good way, and it's just frustrating when you want time and you can't find it, and it's a day where you finish work a bit early and you think, well, I might be able to sneak an hour or 2 and get some drums or something down, or some drums and some basic melodies, and suddenly it's like, no, you've got to look after the little one for a bit, so then it's gone. So you have to try not to get too excited to get in the studio, because it may not happen. So that's probably the best way to answer that.
And more importantly, what does your daughter think of Daddy's music?
But Phil, you asked how my daughter, what she thinks of the music. It's a good question. I have to take, how would I say this? She's just over 3, so I do have some CDs in the car occasionally, so just to listen to on different setups and see how it sounds. And I put the last 3 or 4 tracks on a CD that I've just done recently, just recorded. And I suppose the best way to say is she sits in the back and she'll say, "Can you turn it up please, Daddy? I want the music louder." So I take that as a good sign. As yet, she hasn't said turn it off or I don't like that. So there's something there, I guess. And she, like I said, she seems to, she'll sit there and her head, nod. And so she's certainly listening. Now, what she thinks of it seems positive, but I don't know. Maybe when she's a bit older, she'll be embarrassed and say, "Sorry, Dad, your music was rubbish." But there you go. That's will be teenager for in years to come, and opinions change with the times. So I don't know whether she'll be, "This is something that was great," or "This is something, sorry, Dad, you're an embarrassment." But who knows? If I'm still doing it at that time, maybe she'll take interest. It's not forced, it's up to her. If she's had a little play. If I'm up here sometimes, she'll want to come along and she'll ask to play on the keyboards for a bit, and that's great. I leave her to it and I go out the room and she plays for 20 minutes, half an hour. So, if she finds that interesting in making, sounds and music, then great. Because I know when I started, that's all I was doing, was just bashing away on the keyboard. And now I can make something which sounds like music. So I guess it's an improvement. It took a few years, but it's an improvement.
Yeah, I can relate to that. So do you mind giving us a little tour of your studio and setup?
Right, so here you go, Phil. This is pretty much what I'm restricted to now. I've got my big floor standing monitor speakers either side here of the unit, and there's a couple of PCs there. One is it's nothing major, it just got a good deal of RAM for the software, and everything else is pretty straightforward. It's not a powerful setup in any way, it's just enough to do what I need to do. Usual PC setup. There's an amplifier Denon amplifier there for the sound throughput, and then the major equipment is really here, where I've got my Korg M50, which I use as my workstation. And if I need some longer, full reach like piano, I just use the M Audio key station here, which has the 88 keys and USB thing. Nothing expensive on that one. I do have the Technics keyboard in the other room, which was very expensive when I purchased it, and I loved it to bits, and I did a lot of my old work on that. And I did want that on this keyboard stand, but again, it's room restricted, so it's still under the bed in the other room with the guitar that's in there. There's the hot seat, and yeah, that's about it. It's quite a small, select setup now, which is all I really need, to be honest, because everything is in the software and the keyboard playing. And so there's chest of drawers there. They just house a few old things, a couple of microphones, I think, and cables, probably a lot of cables. Let's have a look. And some receipts from decorating, but generally, yeah, microphones, old speakers, cables, usual nonsense that's kept in a drawer, really tucked out the way. And a few blank CDs. I think there's some old albums down here somewhere. Not in that one. Is it in there? Yeah. I had a few copies. I did frames per second. There's some hard copies of that. So yeah, there's a few bits and pieces. But this is always interesting. Now up here, I've always kept this. It was a vinyl of work I did with a good friend, Timothy Tucker from California. Very good singer and musician. We did a lot of collabs together, and he converted some of our tracks. He got it converted to vinyl, which was lovely. And he sent it to me in the post as a surprise, and that was fantastic. And I've always kept that. And I enjoyed working with Tim, but he's a busy man these days, so it's, again, like we all are, it's much harder. So yeah, it's quite a straightforward studio setup, in all honesty, Phil. So there you go, my friend.
Excellent. So could you fire it up and show us what kind of software setup you use?
I'm going to try and give you a bit of insight into some of the software I use, but obviously Nexus is one of them, which is full of all kinds of sounds from... and it is literally pretty much everything possible. There's a lot of sounds within Nexus. Let me pull the box up again. So you got, it's literally everything within there. There's a huge selection of sounds, and also if I can get it to come up, I've got should be Absinthe 5 up here. Again, it's a lot of synth based sounds. What are we going on to next? I think this is Predator, which is also full of fair selection of various, again, synth-based sounds. As you can see, got all the setup here. I can come down to trance selection, and there'll be a whole host of it's just one sound there, but there'll be a sequence here. So as it is with these things, there's just various opportunities. If I activate channel 4, it should be Vacuum Pro. Again, very heavy on the synths. There's quite a lot of manipulation you can do with this software. Sorry, the camera wasn't quite on cue for that. Various instruments. What have we got here? What basses, pads. We'll close that and we'll go on to something I used to use quite a bit, but I've not used it so much recently, is Korg Legacy. There we go, a little demonstration of the sound. There's not too many sounds within here, but there's a lot of manipulation that can be done with various sounds. What else we got here? Just swing round to the keyboard. So it goes through the whole range. What have we got here? Actually, already sequenced piece of music. So there we go. There's Korg Legacy. Stop that. Move on to the next one. This is very good. Again, going back to the retro sound that I was on about earlier. This is a Commodore 64 sound chip virtual instrument, which is absolutely fantastic. It manipulates everything just about perfectly. And again, there's a fair bit of manipulation you can do within the sounds with the filters and directing and changing the bass and various things to obviously manipulate the sounds for more of your own work. And it's great little package. I need to get some more timing on it because it's still very new. So there's more time to be used on there. I've got quite a few other things down here. Some of them are not installed, but there's a few default instruments which occasionally I'll use. We've got some flutes, I think, here, which will be so, yeah, and the problem is I can't use both hands because where you can see the yellow on the keys there, that allows you to manipulate the instrument to give the effect of dropping the fingers or sliding the fingers across. So you can put more dynamics to the audio, but I'm one-handed at the moment, so that kills all option of that. But yeah, there's various things, and these all play a part in my work and making my work happen. What have we got here? Probably some bass, I would have thought. Oh, no, maybe nothing, because there's no sound at the moment. Well, unfortunately that happens sometimes. It looks like the sound has dropped out. So it was ever since, believe it or not, the last Windows update, it started to drop out sometimes the sound, so I have to restart the program. But anyway, that gives you a little insight into how the tracks are and what I use. obviously with regards to the construction, you know, I will build obviously the various instruments within these channels. It starts with 16, but I can add more, and there'll be a drum track in normally at the top. Bass or pads main melody is underneath on the second row, and then I start filling as we go, normally working in 16 bar sections, sometimes 8 depending on the structure of the track, and that's pretty much how I would construct. And then obviously playing in real time via the keyboard, which has now brought the sound back. Crazily enough, we're back again. So yeah, there we go, we're back. So if I find up here with the bass, so yeah, and that's how it would work. And if ideas flow, brilliant, and a track may be born. If not, then you know it doesn't happen. So hope it's a little insight. I know it's not the best, a bit difficult when you're holding the phone by yourself to do it, but it gives an idea anyway.
Great stuff. You know, it would be awesome to get a glimpse of your songwriting process, you know, how you go about putting a track together.
Okay, well, as you can see, a bit of me recording here. I've already put in this first, the drums are there already, and the first section of the piano, as you'll hear now. The piano is clearly playing in along the percussion there, and then I'm about to bring it into a larger section with some big drums, and you'll see how this develops. It's just only a trial really, but so I'm going to move this round so we can see me on the keyboards. There we go, hopefully that gives a bit of better perspective of things. Let's make sure it's ready, and I'm going to try and fill this into this gap here. With that there for some reason. No, we'll try again. Must be something wrong here, Sand. Let's try again. Reasonably okay. Okay, well now I've readied myself a lead synth, whether it's one I stay with, if obviously this may not continue as a track, but if it does, then I've got a lead synth ready to go in. There we go, that went quite well.
Brilliant. Thanks for showing us, you know, how you work. It's been very informative. Thanks again for doing the interview.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure, Phil, to be asked again. You know, like I said at the first video, it's been a real pleasure to be asked to do this interview, because MP3 has been a good place for me, and I've met some fantastic people there. And you know, there's too many to name, but you know, I've worked with Rich, as in Rich Ladotto. I've worked with Aunt G and Martin and Essence, Lisa. You know, the list just keeps going. And I'm sorry if I forgot anybody. I don't mean that in any. There's loads. Peter Vines, obviously, Malcolm. It goes on and on and on, you know, Joseph, and I'm grateful for all of this. And there's people who are not from MP3 who I've worked with, like Ashlyn Alex and Jose, and it is loads. And it's been a pleasure for many years that I've worked with these people on and off, and I'm a lovely little circle of musicians that I can use and rely on when we need to, and we can help each other out. But it's just a shame the collabs have just quietened down a bit. You know, I'm my good friend Shadow Hour, who's a hip hop artist who uses his own methods to do hip hop. You know, not like your normal hip hop. It's more of a message without the explicit nature of hip hop. It's nothing like that. But yeah, and I'd love to do some more tracks with him. But this is the problem now. You're asking the question about since my daughter was born. It just find it easier to stick to soundtracks when I can, because it just means I'm not a liability if I can't make things for when people want them. So that's tend to what's shaped it a little bit. But that doesn't mean this is not the be all or end all. It can always, and it will come back. I know it will, but it's just I've gone down that route quite a bit now.
So, thanks again for doing this interview.
It's been a real pleasure, Phil, and thank you very much for asking me, and thank you to everybody else who's either known me or been involved with me on tracks and music. It's always appreciated. It really is. You know, music's there for everybody, and it's something that's part of all these guys and girls that do it, you know, no matter what level, skilled, unskilled, just do it for fun, serious. You know, the real artists for me are the guys who are generally the independent artists. There's some fantastic music and musicians there, and you know, and the fact it doesn't get the recognition, that type of thing doesn't bother me personally. I'm happy that, yeah, I will make music, whether it's for someone else, for me, or just, you know, whatever it is. I'm not interested. If I make £5, 5p, it makes no difference. It's music. I'll always do it regardless, and I always have. Like I say, I used to record it onto built-in track sequencers on older keyboards and things, and it, you know, and I don't even know where that stuff is anymore. It went onto tape for a bit, and the tape's probably chucked out. Excuse me, but for me, that's all part of the learning process. So yeah, no, brilliant, Phil. It's been a real pleasure. It really has. So I'm wishing you all the best.
Well, thank you. Thanks again for everything.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
And of course, a big thank you to all the MP3U fans and followers who have been watching these videos. I hope you enjoyed this one, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.